Yeah, this was something that a board member asked for a report out on, is my understanding. And my understanding was that I was going to have somebody come up here from the transportation company and answer difficult questions, because when Terry Comstock has to come up here and help us arrange our schedule, my questions would have been this: do we know when our games are? Does anyone know when our games are? How far in advance do we know when the games are? So when we set up, Brody, when we set up the season for the basketball team, right, we don't do it like 2 weeks ahead, right? I guess I'm asking a student to run the program for me, but that's okay, you're my first choice. What I'm asking everybody is, do we know when the games are? And when do we know when those games are? So we know when the football schedule is, for example. When would we know when the football schedule is? This gentleman, I guess, is running the transportation department. So the superintendent is the one that runs this district. So I don't run staff. I don't run you, sir. I don't tell you what to do. Don't be confused. What I'm asking here is, when we know when the schedule is, when we put our schedule together and hand out the little cards and say, hey, we're going to be playing homecoming here and da-da-da. I understand things change. But tell me about the process where who is in charge of the athletics that say, I'm going to tell the bus company for soccer, basketball, all these sports, to let the bus company know you need to have a bus here 6 weeks from now on a Friday night. Is there a mechanism of doing that? I'm being as sensitive as I can here. What I'm trying to say is, when you know when the football season is going to start, I need some assurance that the bus company is called and say, here, on this day you're going to need this, and this for all the sports. Who is responsible for that? Does VHS have enough support in the area of wherever the schedule is for them to get to transportation and say, we have these games here, schedule the bus? So I would like to understand the reporting chain, so I don't call the company in here and make confetti out of their contract the next time they stiff Terry. I hope I'm clear. If there are 8 weeks of football, then somebody needs to call the company ahead of time and schedule the bus to be there a month ahead of the first game and subsequently thereafter. I understand things happen. We were in here last time and had a long discussion about business operations, because we all don't know what the district does. We don't know what our people do. We had a program called Know Your District that was being run through Vasquez PTSO that helped everybody understand that there are only 5 people doing 7 people's work, or whatever we want to call it. I'm sorry I'm being very direct, but I'm good at it. So I don't want to, I am not going to sit up here as a board member. If I'm arranging bus schedules, trust me, people will be very clear and responsive, or they will be out without district money. But I will not take any more flack from that dais of people making me and my fellow board members responsible for not getting the bus, and the contract needs to be signed. You will be here, and you will, and the bus, if the bus company was here, I'd be asking them right now, how many times did this district fail? And I would hate to think that we wouldn't be able to have that answer in open discussion. I want the buses scheduled when the sports events are here. I need kids focused on learning, not trying to hitchhike to a football game. Thank you for standing up there, sir. I don't even know who you are. God bless you that you came here to work for us, and I know you'll fix it tomorrow. Oh, wait a minute, food services. Do you order the food for next week, 3 weeks after the kids need it, right? Perfect. Don't take me seriously. I don't joke when I'm mad. Okay, so you seem to be the kind of guy that shows up. You're here. So what I'm telling everybody is, I'm not catching the detach about why the tragedy where coaches have to come in here and yell at the board because buses don't show up. I'm missing something. What am I missing? So like my count is 5 over 4 months, 2 months, 4 months. Okay, I have the document. You know me. So how many trips would we typically take of sports teams in 2 or 3 months? That's what I'm saying. So I'm trying to figure out the frequency distribution of what this problem is to the point where there's yelling going on from that podium. So it doesn't seem to be significant to me. People get sick. Did you hear about the nationwide bus driver shortage, sir? Did you hear about that? Did you know that when all the schools shut down, the bus drivers didn't have any work? So instead of waiting for somebody to call them back, they might have went and found some other job with their CDL, and then all of a sudden the state decides to open up the schools. So I have a full-time job, and so then I go and want to work 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, have nothing in the middle. That's so attractive to me if I'm a bus driver, right? Okay, so it doesn't sound to me like there's a huge problem here, and I apologize to the parents that were inconvenienced and got calls at the last second to try to transport kids. That's very unfortunate, but luckily our school staff will make the calls and say, hey, help us out. So I'm making the conclusion that there's not a huge problem here. Don't raise our prices now. Thank you, sir. Ron, it's Ken. I think the public's picking up that we might know each other pretty well, but sure. They never see that. I got some doozy theoreticals ready.
Okay.
So let's say that there's somebody in the audience that thinks that they should be up here instead of me, and they're constantly texting, and they can do that. They can text. But let's say I'm up here constantly texting. Are those texts a matter of public record if the meeting has been called to order and has not been ended? Are those discoverable to the public? So Ron, let's say somebody's out in the audience bashing me to another board member. Is there any privileged immunity that would come with that through a relationship between the parties? Or maliciously misrepresentative? So in other words, let me make this real clear. If my wife is out in the audience and I'm bashing on Tim back and forth, and they discover that, will the district defend me in a malicious misrepresentation suit? Would they have any reason to do that? Would the taxpayer take the hit for money that's supposed to be spent on kids to defend somebody doing this? So we would agree that like local politician immunity drops off the table when you start getting way out of your lane on doing stuff that is just not even of a stretch of it that you wouldn't feel was under the protections you're granted as somebody that sits up here in good faith, I think is how I'd summarize that. Building a fictitious political platform, maybe. Let's move on. Ron, how much pillow talk privilege do I have where I heard something really juicy in closed session about them kids down the street that I've always had a problem with, and geez, I really got to tell Mama when I get home. How much privilege do I have there? Ron, outside of me as a parent and the educational rights holder, or whether I'm a foster parent, saying, what right do school board members have to the medical or educational records of other students in the district, either singly or collectively? Ron, is it good practice for a superintendent to come in closed session and name an individual and seek input from board members as to possible disciplinary, corrective, legal actions? I'm talking about a board that would think that every time somebody comes into closed session with a student or an employee issue, that board has to provide input on what they think the person did or didn't do, or whether they're my friend or not, or how we become involved in ongoing issues that are under the superintendent's control in closed session. Tell us about that. Yeah, the superintendent's here. What I'm getting at is I don't tell the superintendent on how to discipline a student. I don't advocate or condemn students or employees or anything. That's my point here. Negotiations, Ron, when we're talking about ongoing negotiations, and let's say there's someone at the podium talking about how poorly the negotiations are going, should I make a comment if I believe they're not going well, if the negotiations aren't closed? No, I'm referring to comments that were made in a comic book that I was reading when I was 7 years old in Mississippi. Should I be making comments as a board member during an ongoing negotiation, either to influence them or not outside of closed session? Good. And finally, Ron, I see some governmental agencies, not the one I work for and hopefully not the one I serve on here, who will tell people, you need to fill out your speaker card for something that's on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. And let's say I'm a gadfly, I used to be a really good one, and I'm sitting out in the audience, and I hear something in the discussion where I just feel like I need to comment, and I'm told, oh, you can't comment on this item because you didn't fill out the card when I told you you should have. Is that legal, Ron? Ron, I think what I'm getting at here is this. If I am out in the audience of a school board meeting and I maybe come to hear something and something in the discussion of the board leads me to want to make a public comment that I didn't know I wanted to make, I should be able, and I do this when I'm the president, you can pick up one of those cards and fill it out and talk midstream as long as you're respectful. Is that a better practice than saying you have to come in at 7 o'clock and fill out a card, or you don't get to speak ad hoc when the issue is popping up and you feel compelled? I'll be having a chat with the superintendent and the board president over here, because I'm a believer, not public comment, not off agenda items. I'm specifically talking about agendized items as they occur. Somebody walks in late, gets here from work, wants to speak on item 10, fills out the card as it's happening. So I'm done, Ron. Thank you for being patient with me. I think there was a lot of training done here tonight. Okay, I spoke a lot earlier, and a couple things I want to talk about here. This is AV Press. This is a regional paper. There's something called the SELPA. It's called the Special Education Local Plan Area. It's a collective of school districts. There's 10 in it. It tells you this is kind of like the school districts around us. It's the region. Everybody in there, from the small rural districts to the really big districts in the Antelope Valley, read this paper. And when we see in the paper, a regional paper, that the grant aids the district's mental health, this is the calling card I want to see. There's $3.6 million on the table here that bring more people, more programs, and make them meaningful. This is significant. I can market this all day long. Thank you, team, for this. Next thing. Kelly, I'm glad you're here tonight. Kelly came on the board and filled a terrible hole. Kelly actually knows about educating children, 17,000 of them that she's responsible for the curriculum. And she was recently awarded a LACO countywide award. It was the Beth Dalton Award. I hope that's not the same Beth Dalton, but yeah, the Beth Dalton Memorial Award for Leadership and Literacy Development. There is a huge hole up here with you being gone when it comes to supporting the superintendent, where it really gets down to education, because short of Tim playing basketball, we don't know anything about education compared to the team you two made. Thank you for coming in here tonight and telling us or watching what we're doing. I had a lot to say to you tonight that only you understood, and I appreciate having the opportunity to let you know that I so much appreciated your work when nothing could be spoken. When the lawyer's talking about lynch mobs, we've been through that. Thank you for being there. Okay, so again, I keep referring to the Know Your District program. I think this is good to where we know who does what. People stop being villainized that way. How many people are on your team?
Myself and Hillary.
Okay, so how do I put this to you? I have what I look at when it comes to an organization, especially this type of organization or service organization. It's a triangle. Whatever you're doing up here is like a compass. Down here, you have policy and management. You have the people that run this, and then over here you got budget and facilities. And when you have focuses that get disrupted there, it tilts this way or tilts this way, and education suffers, productivity suffers, all those kinds of things suffer. HR is a rough area because when you're small, it becomes very difficult for you to be the director of basically the educational effort in the district and also be the bad guy in HR. And so HR doesn't fit anywhere into my triangle at all. And it becomes very difficult, especially when you're small, to have these innovative things because then you like that person and you don't like me and all that garbage. What I'm most interested in is, I hear this over and over everywhere I go, orientation is something very different than onboarding. Onboarding says, here is your job description. Are you qualified to do your job? Do you know what to do tomorrow morning? Or the first time there's an issue, you don't know what you're doing, you're not trained. So I'm a firm believer in onboarding. If I were going to, I'm going to be careful now, this idea that we're spewing out this venomous thing that says that we just cycle people or people aren't important here or they're leftovers or something. That's very offensive to me. I work for a top-end organization. We don't have problems with benefits and all that, and we have great salaries, and yeah, we're at the top end of things, and that's where kind of my career has been. So when I went from one place to the next, and the money gets better and stuff, I choose to do that because I fit the model that they need in productivity. And maybe my goals in life are different. I look at the people in my organization. Some people want to fill a position so their life is better for their kids, and they want the stability. They don't want the glory overnight stuff. So I kind of look at people, and some people are just happy and like to work where they work, and this characterization of stuff. But back to where I work, it takes 4 to 6 months to onboard somebody. And we have a great HR department, and they're separate. They break out of the triangle. Very few of the directors can influence what HR is doing significantly. But there's a process. And rushing that process to the point where you can't do a background check on somebody on the internet, I found that to be sometimes a very scary experience. So at the end of the day, I hear that you have 2 people doing this work. I don't know that 2 people can onboard to make sure that everybody understands their job description. If we have glitches and reorganization stuff, that stuff has to come in front of this board. We don't need to modify the job schedule. The superintendent is required to bring that to us. The associations have the right to see these things. And so this is just a very arduous process, and I get that. If I were to tell you what I think is important, at the top end of this is HR doesn't fit into this triangle well around here. And I would think about how to make that work where policy and management doesn't get in the way of facilities and finance, and the educational leader is leading education. That's why we're here. We're not here for anything else but to make sure kids get educated, and that's our measure, and that's how we get people here. So I enjoy these presentations. I would hope that we would find a way to put them on the internet. We would have a healthy discussion about the reality of 2 people, what they can do, where supports are needed, and where a good word is a lot more helpful in bringing people here than than some of the stuff I'm hearing. So thank you. Let's get this stuff posted. I don't like sitting up here and hearing an over and over and over analysis of a three people department every time some face up here changes. I get it. Thank you for the work you do. There's just not enough time in the day for you to do what you do. And I hope everybody can take a look at that and have some patience and come up with some solutions and take a look at the organizational structure. I would really like HR to be taken out of education, please. That's not a directive, it's just common sense. Okay, before I do this, I really need to know what this means. Who's a third-party consultant?
Who is the consultant?
Well,
Yeah, do we?
When it becomes agendized, we discuss that.
Well, no,
I think we have to find one.
Well, so, no, I need to understand this. Because what this typically runs into is outsourcing. Would that be considered?
I think it, potentially.
So we're going to hide an outsourcing of our bus system under a quick future agenda item?
I think we need to look at it and see if it's...
Is this something
where
that
it's
the
at now.
superintendent, you can file a Brown Act complaint against me now, and then I'll really be able to talk about it. Was this on the strategic plan anywhere? The transportation, that we were going to consider outsourcing transportation, and we were going to have a third-party consultant come in and to do an organizational efficiency review on our transportation department. I don't recall that being one of your recommendations.
It's not on the existing strategic plan.
So I'm going to tell you something. You can tell I'm getting a little loose here about this. In November of 2011, I was directed by the city to take a look at the livelihoods of 17 people. It's on the television. I didn't need a consultant to write the analysis report. It was an outsourcing report. I lived as 17 people thought about losing their jobs. They were told, oh, you can go to work for this company that we sell our stuff to. And yeah, if that's where this is going, yeah, I'm out, completely out. You got to front load. And the worst part about it was everybody that was involved, by whoever the person was up here, were kind of villainized. So the next thing, our superintendent will be labeled as subcontracting out bargaining units, especially when we just signed an agreement with the classified people. If I were the union rep, I'd be loose right now, very loose. Yeah, I know what this looks like. I'd be very interested in who a consultant is, because I know about joint powers agreements where you have an agreement, fire departments do it. When we have a fire over here, we come in and fill in with you. But I don't know too many school bus consultants. Don't know any. I'd be very interested to know who that is. I'm a no.
Clarification here for a second.
There we go. We need to loop back around if we're going to do that. But
I do need clarification because this completely changed. The vote was for a review of the transportation plan and budget. The vote was not for
Services outside of the district.
hiring
well, excuse me. What is the plan? Could someone produce that plan for me right now? Is there a district transportation plan?
Yes.
Okay.
That was, we're voting on the plan.
Oh, I get it. I don't have
If we're voting on something different, let's loop back around and we'll start at 10.
I'm still talking. I don't have a problem with the district's transportation plan. I know what this smells like. I've lived it. I'm out.